Fears that 10,000 retired Dallas police officers and firefighters are about to see their pensions vaporize fueled a march in downtown Dallas today. Fox 4's Lori Brown joins us now with a message they hope to send the mayor, who they say is personally trying to kill their pension. Lori.
Beating the drum to save their pension, an estimated 1,000 Dallas police officers and firefighters took to the streets of downtown Dallas.
They're trying to take our money that we earned.
For Wendy Tanksley, it's emotional.
Scott was our main provider.
Her husband, Scott Tanksley, a Dallas firefighter, was hit and killed while helping a stranded driver on an icy overpass 3 years ago.
I am absolutely worried. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Dallas Police Association President Sergeant Mike Mata believes the mayor has no desire to save the pension.
By his actions, it has become obvious that his true intentions are to collapse the pension, casting over 7,000 men and women of the Dallas and Police Fire out into the cold without a pension.
Alan Weir, who turned 60 this month, showed us his latest 401k statement, which he hadn't had the courage to open up.
I'm afraid.
There's good reason for his trepidation. Nearly half of his life savings have vanished in a matter of months.
It went down again.
How much are you down overall?
About $140,000.
Do you think you'll ever get it back?
I would probably never see it come back. I was looking to retire probably when I hit 62. You can't do it now.
Tell me about your 401k.
Does this answer the question?
This is what it was in 2005. 2007, you're down below 2005.
Right. Another one went down almost $40,000. One was
Right.
88,000, and then it went down to like 50.
How old are you?
54, and I live alone. I don't have any children. I've been a career girl all my life, and it's been a great career, and I don't deserve this. I'm sorry.
It's all right. Psychologically, what does this piece of paper do to you?
Oh, it crushes any rest I may get when I'm 65. I'll have to work for the rest of my life.
The saddest part of this story is that it's being repeated all over the country. In eastern Pennsylvania, 59-year-old Iris Hans lost her accounting job and half of her 401k investments. She's now back in the workforce as a part-time cashier in a grocery store.
Your debit card. You have a great day.
In Dearborn, Michigan, Terry and Donna McNally are barely holding on. He lost his sales job in August. The condo they bought 15 years ago is worth less than their mortgage, and 40% of his 401k retirement savings is gone. Donna is the main provider now.
Let me hear you count to 10. Can you count to 10?
1, 2,
running a daycare center out of their home.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Terry considers himself fortunate to have found part-time work greeting the bereaved at a funeral home and making lattes at Starbucks.
There you go.
We can't live our vision of our dream of retirement. That's the worst part. Many people can't.
What kind of a retirement plan allows millions of people to lose 30 to 50% of their life savings just as they near retirement? David Ray, president of the profit-sharing 401k Council of America and a lobbyist for the 401k industry, says it's one that empowers people to make their own investment decisions.
401k is the absolute best way people can save for retirement. They absolutely are the best retirement vehicle we have.
How can you say it's the best available if it has let down tens of millions of people at the time they need the money the most?
That's not a 401k problem. That is our entire investment system. This is about the markets went down for everybody. Nobody was saved in the current thunderstorm. In America, it's a society based on freedom and choice and personal responsibility. We need to help them understand these responsibilities and execute them to the best they can. 401k is part of that. There are no guarantees.
What about the people who are 63 or 64? A lot of those people were thinking about retiring.
Well,
and now they aren't.
Well, I mean,
a lot of them were retired and have to go back into the workforce.
But in fact, the 401k plans that have become the primary source of retirement income for 60 million Americans were never designed to be retirement plans in the first place.
The idea was that workers would make voluntary contributions and employers would match a portion of them. The taxes would be deferred until the employee reached the age of 59 and a half. It was supposed to supplement the two traditional income streams for retirees, Social Security and pensions, one leg of a three-legged stool that would support American workers into their golden years. But it didn't turn out that way.
The three-legged stool, if you will, has gone to two legs and it's wobbly.
There clearly has been a raid on these funds by the people of Wall Street, and it's cost the savers and the future retirees a lot of money that would otherwise be in their account, independent of the financial collapse.
Representative George Miller of California is chairman of the House Committee on Education and Labor and a staunch critic of the 401k industry, especially its practice of deducting more than a dozen undisclosed fees from its clients' 401k accounts.
Now you got a bunch of economic wizards jumping in and taking money out of your retirement plan, and they don't want to tell you how much. You can't decipher it in simple English, and they're not interested in disclosing it or having any transparency about it.
And most of the people that look at their 401ks have no idea that these fees are being taken out.
No. Where would you find it? Where would you find these fees in this prospectus? You can look on any page you want, and when you're all done reading it, and you will find some of the fees and the commissions here, but you won't find them all, and I bet you won't find half of them.
There are legal fees, trustee fees, transactional fees, stewardship fees, bookkeeping fees, finder's fees, and the list goes on and on. Miller's committee has heard testimony that they can eat up half the income in some 401k plans over a 30-year span, but he has not been able to stop it.
We tried to just put in some disclosure and transparency in these fees, and we felt the full fury of that financial lobbying.
David Ray, a lobbyist for the 401k industry, says he favors disclosing the fees, but his partners in the financial industry don't.
You think most people know these fees exist?
I think they know that there are fees. They don't know exactly how large they are.
Why do you think the financial services industry is opposed to fee transparency?
I don't know that they're opposed to it. I think the issue is...
You don't think they're opposed to it?
Well, they want to keep...
You're a lobbyist in Washington, right? You know they're opposed to it. George Miller hasn't been able to get a bill to the floor.
I think they want to keep the systems as simple and not make changes. They like the way things are, and whenever you push people out of their comfort zones, you know, it's an issue.
I mean, they're comfortable with the situation because they're making a ton of money, or they have made a ton of money.
Well, and their systems are set up in certain ways. You know, this is going to be a big change.
We wanted to ask David Ray, who's been so bullish on 401k plans, one last question about what the future holds for people like Terry and Donna McNally and Kathleen Coleman, who you met at the beginning of this story.
Dedicated, loyal, I can be there, there's nothing standing in my way. Thank you. Need a babysitter?
Most of the people that we've talked to are 50 and 60 years old,
right,
and have sustained these losses, say there is no way they're ever going to make them back.
Right.
Do you agree with that?
I think we have to be truth tellers. I think that when a person has hit this point and we've had this unfortunate situation, I don't think we can misrepresent what the possibilities are.
And the reality is that money's not coming back that they've lost.
They can't count on it.
Recently, President Obama announced a plan to require businesses to automatically enroll their employees in IRA plans. This is reminiscent of the payroll tax withholding of the 1940s, which would put the government just one step away from being able to confiscate our retirement accounts in the future. Obama is already selling a MIRA, telling Americans it would be an account with good returns and no risk. In October of 2010, the National Seniors Council stated, "A recent hearing sponsored by the Treasury and Labor Departments marked the beginning of the Obama administration's efforts to nationalize the nation's pension system and to eliminate private retirement accounts, including IRAs and 401k plans."
They'll do what they think is necessary, and they'll use force, and they'll use intimidation, and they'll use guns, because you can't challenge the state. They're quite capable the people I know in Washington are saying, well, you got to save the country. You can buy treasury bills from now on. So, no, I think that's very possible.
This is insanity. People who put money into their 401ks do it so they can get away from the government. They do it because they know that Social Security, which is something that was set up by the government to help manage people's money, to help people in retirement, they know that Social Security is not going to be there. So what do? They put this into their 401k, and now the government's saying, well, look at all of this money over here. Maybe we can use it to our advantage. But the fact is that they shouldn't be touching it because, like you just mentioned, anytime they touch something private, it turns into a complete disaster. And this will give the government the ability to borrow more, which means spend more money, which is the last thing they should be doing.
All right, Katie, a couple of issues for me. It sounds like they want to manage it the way they've managed or mismanaged the Social Security Trust Fund.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, that's exactly what the government does. So the Social Security system was set up, as everyone knows, to pay for your, some of your retirement when you get older. But the fact is that that's been a slush fund for other programs. The whole lockbox notion has never worked, and now that money's not going to be there. And so they're looking at the 401k as essentially doing the same thing. And let's not forget, this isn't the first time the government's been eyeing the 401k system. Just a year ago, they looked at it in terms of maybe getting rid of some tax incentives that were good for people that encouraged people to save. But in the long run, this is only going to create more problems because people put money in a 401k to be private, to make sure that they're okay and away from government and dependent on the government when they retire. But this will only, if the government touches it, allow them to be more dependent on the government, which we just can't afford.
Yesterday, I was telling you about Bailins. It's where big banks take your money out of your checking account in order to bail themselves out because the government isn't going to anymore. Ellen Brown, and I said, this is the law in Europe starting January 1st. Well, it turns out it's been the law in the United States since 2014. Ellen Brown, over at Truthdig, a crisis worse than ISIS, bail-ins begin. Ellen Brown of webofdebt.com. And she points out, she's quoting Shah Jalani, who was a former hedge fund manager who wrote an op-ed back in November of last year titled, Why I'm Closing My Bank Accounts While I Still Can. And he says, it is entirely possible the next banking crisis that depositors in giant too big to fail failing banks could have their money confiscated and turned into equity shares. They can keep your deposited money and turn it into shares of equity capital to try and keep your too big to fail bank from failing. If you bank with one of the country's biggest banks who collectively have trillions of dollars of derivatives held off balance sheet, etc. And he says this was in Dodd-Frank, 2010, actually.
The sunshine feels like rain on my skin. The same song is playing.